So it is January 2022, and this year, well, last year has been an interesting one, hasn't it? So there was two ways that this was going to play out. One was a really big pump at the end of the year, which is not what happened, or an extended cycle, which is exactly what we're looking at. Now, with that, the end of December and early January came with a lot of pain, and it's painful being in crypto. Some people aren't really ready for what it's like and all the emotions that happen when things don't go our way and when things pull back. And a lot of times we're right in crypto in the bets that we take, but where we're wrong is that sometimes it doesn't happen as soon as we want it to. And isn't that how it's played out for a lot of people? In fact, many of my things, I'm still waiting. I know that they're going to do well. They just haven't all hit yet, because that elongated cycle is still coming, and that massive bull leg, my guess, is still heading straight for us. And I'm well positioned, or at least I believe I'm very well positioned for that, because I've got my portfolio set up for that. Now, today we have a special guest. Paul with Dfinity is joining us again, and it's so good to have him with us. Paul, are you there?
I am indeed. It's great to be here. Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah, it's so good to have this show again. Our audience absolutely loves it. I love it. It's great to get your price analysis and your background and get your take on things. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, hasn't it?
Yes, indeed. I think before Christmas or, the seasonal break, we were talking about how the market could be going lower, and we have been very cautious going into this new year. And we mentioned that it could take a little while before the market settles down and then moves into this next big up wave. So it's all par for the course. This happens in every market, not just cryptocurrencies. But it does always feel very dark before things turn around. It's a bit like the seasons. We've just had the longest night, and we will now slowly get into the equal day and night equinox in March, and then we'll be into the summer. So before you know it, these trends will be over and it'll all be forgotten. Hopefully, as long as the charts continue to play out as we expect. But there's nothing that's changed from a big picture point of view.
Yeah, big picture, we're right on track. The video that we did yesterday, if you haven't seen it, really talks about a recap on 2022 or 2021 and really what's good for 2022. Some of the picks that we made last year have already hit well and did 100x, and some of them are still to come. So if you haven't seen that video, check it out for those in the audience. Today we have Paul, and we get to go through some price analysis. I know you all love this as much as I do. What's on your mind, Paul? What are you looking at, and what have your thoughts been? It's been about 2.5-3 weeks since we did our last episode.
Absolutely. Well, I think the best way to tell you is to actually look at the charts and show you what I'm going through. And so I was basically looking for a move up in the US dollar, and a lot of the trend downwards in Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies I was assuming was being caused by this rally in the dollar, which was also a rally in the US 10-year bond market. So anyone who's got a mortgage will know that the amount that you are charged on your mortgage is not what price of the price of money now, it's the price in 5 or 10 years time. And this has been going up aggressively because there's been a complete re-rating by the Fed about inflation. A lot of people in the markets have been saying, look, inflation's getting out of control, prices are going up in the shops, and you're not really reacting to it. And they've now kind of cottoned on that, yes, they need to raise rates. Now, the market's very contrary like that. As soon as they realize that the market realizes that the Fed are actually on board with what's going on, the market can flip in the opposite direction. So the point for the moment is that 10-year yields were rising, and that is because people can get interest on their money. That is a competition to cryptocurrencies. It doesn't mean that it's going to invalidate it by any stretch of the imagination. It just means that in the short term, there'll be some competition. Now, there was this very big level here at 1.774 that it took out. It could go to 2%, which means that Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies could be in what we call a holding pattern before they start to go up. So this eventually will start to come down again. I think the pendulum is swinging too far now in the inflationary camp, and we'll see things swing back the other way. That means the dollar is going to weaken. gold and silver could possibly be going up, and also cryptocurrencies are going to go into a big rally. But it could take a few weeks, possibly a couple of months before that happens, and we'll be consolidating in that time in between. But if we look at the chart of Bitcoin itself, so here we've had this downward correction, and this yellow line for me is it's got to break this line before I get bullish, and this 54,000 line, which has been a very important level. I'm bullish while above and bearish while below, but there are times when the market dips to what I call buy level or gimme levels. It's like, that's so low, we've got to have a go at it. Now this red line I've had in for a while, and this is at 39,576, and you can see how it's matched it perfectly, and the market is rallying. Now that's a decent bounce, doesn't end the trend yet, but that's a really good place for the market to be rallying from. And I think what we're going to see is a consolidation, a sideways move, and then we'll break above 54,000 and head towards the all-time highs at some point this year. So we could make new lows and new highs within this year, and I think the order will be potentially new lows early year, but then within Q2 we should be heading back upwards and making a clearer upward trend. But at the moment the market's respected really good support here, and I think that's important because that's a really big level there. Now we can't rule out a further correction, but I'd like to put my crypto rain hat on and say, buy when it's boring, buy when everybody else is getting really worried, and look for those lower levels in advance. So when the news is really bad, you're prepared and ready to get in, and those can be ultimately very good long-term levels.
I agree. And buying when it's boring is hard. And I know a lot of people in crypto, not a lot come in when it is boring. So in the last 2 months, not a lot of new people have come into crypto. A lot of the people that are here already have a bunch of their assets allocated or a lot of their capital allocated. But it's the best time to buy when it's the boring. It's also the hardest. In yesterday's live stream, we talked about Vivi and some of the things, some collectibles in the Vivi app. And it's like looking back to last year, a few things really pumped. And one was third generation blockchains, or essentially Ethereum competitors really pumped. Like Phantom did like a 300x, Avalanche did like a 50x. A lot of them did some really big gains. And then NFTs did some really big gains. And specifically, we covered some like VV ones in ours. And this was long before we knew you, Paul, but literally some of these collectibles that we picked up did over 100x on collectibles. Yeah. There was one particular, it was $80, just under $80, now going for $8,000. Isn't that crazy? And it's a Batman collectible. So it's been interesting how 2022 is shaped up. Yeah. Now the market has gotten, or 2021 shaped up, and then 2022 is starting. The market has gotten savaged. Everything's boring right now. It's like everything is on massive sale, or almost everything is on massive sale. So I'm excited about this time. Though my guess is a lot of people in the audience already allocated their capital. If they haven't, boy, you got a lot of picks. Now, historically, this happens in crypto a lot. And being a crypto investor, what I find, especially being a longer term holder, is that I run into this frustrating situation that it gets cheaper than I ever thought it would get. And so I've deployed my capital, and then I just sit on it patiently. I've been through that about 7 times now, and the like very severe drops like this where I wasn't prepared for its drop as savagely as it did. And so I had deployed my capital earlier. And it's frustrating because you think, wow, the prices are even better. I could get so much more, but the capital is already deployed. But then with some patience, and when you make solid picks on teams with solid fundamentals, it eventually recovers above the price that you were bought at, and then severely goes ahead of where you bought at, to the point that you actually have forgotten the time when like it dropped way below what you bought at. You're just so pleased with how your position has done. So I know a lot in the audience, many got in March, some later in the year. A few of them have been with me for longer than that. but like you haven't had enough time yet to see this pattern happen more than just maybe once or twice if you've been here since March. July got pretty savage, got really, really cheap for a lot of things. And since then, we had a really big pickup. And I would say this is the next big moment where just about everything got wrecked temporarily. But I see sunny skies ahead. And that doesn't mean we won't have another 2 weeks of pain. I don't know what the next 2 weeks will look like, but my guess is after the next couple of weeks, we do have some clear, the skies will clear and we will have some bigger upticks. In fact, leading into a spring bull run that's going to be, I think, really, really strong. Now, none of this financial advice. We're not financial advisors. We're crypto investors and traders ourselves. And we're sharing with you our opinions and how we think they'll happen. Now, my apologies to the audience out there. I did get hit with the microscopic thing everyone's calling Rona. I think you guys know what I mean. And I'm still recovering, so my skin might be a little bit pale. But I did want to join you. It's been too long since we did this with Paul, so I felt like we needed to do another video just to give you guys an update on what we think is going on. So, Paul, what do you want to look at? What do you have that you most want to look at? And then we'll look at some audience picks from a few weeks ago. For those of you in the audience, if you want to make a pick, you got to put in the comment section, like not the chat, but the comment section, what you want us to look at, and we will put that on the schedule for the next show.
Yeah, so I'm happy to go into the audience picks.
Okay.
So yeah, so let's have a look at the first one, which I think is Vent. If you can see that on your chart, on your screen, just check it's the right one.
So, yes, that is the right one.
Yeah, so this is Vent. Now, obviously everything has been going down. So what we have to look for here is the markets that are moving contrary to the market going down, if you see what I mean. So what's swimming against the tide? When the market gets cheaper, everyone's looking for the bargains, and at the moment this is still going downwards and it hasn't bounced with the rest of the market, which is a little bit of a concern for me. So from a technical point of view, it's fairly clear that I would be waiting. Now, again, you've heard me say it a few times on the show. If you're like Warren Buffett and you're looking at good fundamentals, you're going to get excited when things get cheap, because you know that these are going to be long-term good opportunities. I don't look at the markets like that. I can only look at what's in front of me and wait for the market to turn before I get bullish. And this is clearly going down. Now, I'd like to flip this chart. If it was flipped, I'd be bullish. I'd be really bullish because it would be breaking into new highs, but it's not. It's breaking into new lows. So unfortunately, I have to step aside, at the very least, wait for this to find some support and then carve out a base and then break higher. Now, what would be really good for me would be a break of this 0.34 area, because there's been 1, 2, 3 levels of resistance at that point, and support and resistance tends to reverse its roles. So this was a really important support point. And so it likes to play around this area here. So if it can get through that, I can see a nice looking chart, but we're not there yet. I'm kind of painting that in at the moment, and therefore we need to wait a little bit longer on that one. And when there's no natural support on the chart, i.e., even if we go back, it's not traded there for a very long time, or it's the lowest it's been, I can't actually call a specific stopping point because the market hasn't confirmed that. The only thing you can do in those instances is potentially look at round numbers, so 0.20, 0.10, or 0.15, something like that. Those can offer short-term opportunities, but I think what we're going to be looking for is something that perhaps would work for the longer term.
Yeah, I agree with you. The chart pattern is screaming to me that it's still going to continue to decrease. Now, Cardano, Vent is a Cardano launchpad. It was the third one in as far as timing that came out. I really like the team. I did a video with Lucas from Vent as well as Kent from Meld, and the video got tons of views because Vent and Meld partnered to do a bridge between Polygon and Cardano. And they have good connections. They're good in good launches on Vent. It's just all the launchpad tokens have performed really poorly. That's just been what a lot of people have seen. Don't expect that to continue. When the market does get really hot, then these launchpad tokens go for a premium, and that's when they really pick up. But until Cardano was taking off and people are really trying to get into the Cardano launches, well, then you'll probably see the token price suffer. And it doesn't seem like we've hit the bottom yet. I'm not seeing that nice rounded bottom I like to see, where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is the bottom. Looks like it's still taking a tumble for a little while, even though fundamentally I like the project. I like the team behind it. Probably get cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, and also the thing with these things is, if you like it and you're looking for a buy point from when you have no position in it, um, you've got to get your head around the fact that you might have to buy it at a higher level. And so the reason why I do that technically is because it allows the market to punch itself out on the downside, and then you can get in when the market is swinging back up and you're not having to ride out a longer term retracement. So another strategy some people employ is they buy a little bit on the way down, like really small
Yeah.
amounts that you wouldn't really worry that much about. It's not going to change your life, but so you just sort of nibble at the market a little bit, and that way you can get your feet wet in it without actually doing any damage should it completely collapse. But you've got to be wary about chasing the market too much to the downside, because there will be other things that could potentially be better. And if all your capital is caught up in one market, you can't explore something else. So you have to think of it in those terms. You were saying, Crypto Rain, about what other markets might be interesting. I mean, the one that I'll just put in very quickly that I've kind of liked is Polygon, MATIC, which
Yep.
was trying to break through this resistance, and actually it did. I think before the new year we were talking about it moving to this new high, and that was against everything that was going down. So this really is swimming against the tide compared to everything else, and it's respecting this long-term support line. So it recently tried to, well, made a new high, just popped its head over the new high, and then got slapped back because everything's been going down. But you see how quickly it's bounced back up, and also see how different this chart looks to the previous chart. This is, at least it's in an ascending structure with this trend line. So we can point to buy points and say that if we project into the future, if the market continues, and this is all probability, we don't know for sure, but if we look at the intermarket analysis, which is stronger than most of the other things, plus it's still going up, it's looking pretty good. So that's why I kind of like this one. And I think if everything bounces, this could be through its new all-time high quicker than everything else.
Yeah, it seems like the team behind MATIC continues to do amazing things and innovate as a layer 2 solution for ETH. And they continue to have a lot of projects building on top of them. So it just seems like the momentum continues to be there. It's amazing how well it performed while everything else got savaged. It got savaged a little bit, but it's bounced right back, which just shows there's a lot of buyer support for it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely in the blue chip category, or at least I think of it as in the blue chip category, where it doesn't have 100x left in it. Probably I just couldn't see that during this bull run, but it's going to be a lot more stable, and it's a good price point. If it breaks above that previous high, then it might be off to the races for a while.
Yeah, great stuff. So I think the next one that we were going to look at, I have to just unlock my phone.
DDIM.
Okay, brilliant.
Now this is DuckDao Dime. This is a launchpad token. I held a lot of this in March because I was participating a lot in launchpads, and they're sometimes a pain. Sometimes you're waking up at 2 a.m. in the morning to participate. But some of the stuff that you get in, especially as the market gets hot, you're able to turn around and flip whatever you got from the launchpad, like, sometimes 10 minutes later, sometimes a day later, you're able to flip it for, 2x, 3x, sometimes 20x gains. And so, yeah, like all the other launchpads, their token has gotten savage since March. It did pop up there pretty high for a little bit, all the way to $36. Now it's all the way back to 12.
Yes. So it was
Ah,
attempting to break out here. And this was all looking pretty good. I think we may have even talked about it on the show. But in any case, so the rate of decline, the rate of incline is something that I always look at. So how quickly does it go down? How quickly does it bounce? What sort of symmetry have we got going on? Because people bail in and bail out at different rates depending on how worried or excited they are about the market. Here is actually we're in a fairly neutral space because we've seen a downward trend. We've seen the upward trend and it's sort of coming off again and consolidating, but the overall trend is very bullish. So
yeah.
I like this overall trend, and I think that this is the dominant overall direction for the market. So what we would do then is be looking at areas where we think this has got a bit too cheap and it would be liable for a bounce. So this is quite a nice run to the downside. I'd be willing to say that if you didn't have a position in it, or if I didn't have a position, which I don't, nibbling around this area, it's not a bad one because there is a bit of support. There's some support from here. It's corrected quite far, and the rest of the market is bouncing, and the overall structure is relatively bullish as well. So I don't think it will take off tomorrow. It'd be nice if it does, but this is not a bad level to get in. Now, I would be looking at that on the basis that it could get cheaper, and I'd be doing the same as it approaches this level at $6, $6.4. To me, that is a bit of a line in the sand, and I'd be buying it at this level, thinking that it could get as low as here. So it wouldn't be 100% of the position. It'd be like 5 or 10%, just because it's had a decent correction. And so I actually think, given how it's trading, it will continue to range trade in the next few weeks, but then it should participate in this next broadly bullish phase with everything else. So that's why I think round about these levels, we're getting close to the market being quite compelling, potentially compelling to buy from a sort of a much longer term perspective. But you know what it's like when you're trying to time it, you can't actually be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, agreed. I think the price for me, it's a wait. I think the price can get a little bit more attractive, just like we've seen with Vent and a lot of the launchpad tokens. There's people aren't feeling the pressure to get them yet because people just got savage with the market. They're not thinking, oh, I'm going to get in. It's the best time to be buying, but it's when other people are thinking about it. So the cool thing about launchpad tokens is that they can get you in at IDO prices. The DuckDao Dime token actually can get you in on pre-sale prices. Brings me back to some flashbacks to February and March when I was still trying my hardest to grow my portfolio and participating in a bunch of those launches just to try to get some value, because launchpads can be great if you get in a good launch and then it doubles or triples or 20x's and you're able to flip those tokens to grow things. So DDIM brings back some memories.
Cool.
DuckDao was a fun one that I participated in a lot back then.
Brilliant.
Let's take a look at the next one, which is COPI. Now, Cornucopias, we had the founders join us about a week ago.
Cool.
And they joined us on the live stream. It was a fantastic interview. Really made me even more bullish on Cornucopias than I already am. And so this is pulling it versus Bitcoin. Is there any chance we could look at
Oh,
it versus?
sure. Yeah. That was my yeah. So it tends to default to that for some reason. Has it done it again? No, that's the dollar.
No,
Yeah, dollar. Yeah,
that's it.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, this is obviously a new market. So we've got the upward trend, the first phase, and this is a double top pattern which ends trend. So this trend has ended, as we can see. So this is what we can see so far. But the overall direction, even though it's early stage, the overall direction is bullish. Now, it's stuck a stake in the ground here where the market has hit a low and having a decent rebound. This is the sort of price action I like to see, where we get a lot of bearish sentiment and the market turns around quickly. Now, one blue bar does not a bull trend make, as it were. So we do need to see a little bit more of that. But I think this is, given the limited price action, it looks okay. I mean, it looks like it's corrected with the rest of the market. It's still very early stage, but it needs to do a little bit of work to get bullish, just a little bit, but not much, because it's already been trending up from here. So this, to me, is I'm looking at and thinking of it in something called Elliott wave terms. In Elliott wave terms, you have this as a wave 1. This will be a wave 2 correction, and it goes up in 5 waves. So then we end up breaking this and then ending up on the wave, what we call the wave 3. Wave 3 is usually the strongest wave. So I want to look for the signs that this wave 3 is going to start. Now, it can come lower. That's well within the parameters of the discipline. As long as it doesn't break the opening point here, we can maintain a cautiously positive view. If it breaks this low, then that's not good. So it's well away from that, but I was just pointing that out. But from a short-term trading perspective, I'd like to see it break this trend line. That would be the first signal for me that it's moving into this new wave, and ultimately recovering back over this main trigger. So where all the traders would have gone short-term traders, is a break of this level. I know you don't think in terms of going short, but professional traders buy and sell short. So if they think something's going to go down, they see that as much as an opportunity as it going up. So if it breaks this level on the upside, then they'll have to cover all their shorts, and that for me is where it starts to get really interesting. But for the moment, it's quite an interesting looking chart on its own.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that project. I think the team is doing great things. So I think a lot of the gaming market is going to resume going crazy this year. I think there's a lot of value there. It will probably overpump tremendously, and then it will overcorrect. And we love that. We love the overpump, because then we can sell and take profits at crazy highs, as well as then we can have some of that capital sitting liquid on the sidelines for when it overcorrects and people say, oh my gosh, this project's dead. During that time, we will continue interviewing the different teams and make sure everything's going well in the team when everything's cheap, so that we can identify really good buys. So I'll be around during the crypto winter, and I hope all of you will too, because that is where life-changing money is made, is buying really low so that you can then sell really high.
Absolutely.
Cornucopias, love where it's going. Let's look at Umbrella, UMB. Now, we covered this one. I can't remember when we covered it, but we covered it just before it pumped really well, and we identified everything that was going to make it pump, and it went crazy, and took profits on the way up, and now it's come right back down to a really good price again. This one is compared to Chainlink, and it can do more price feeds for cheaper than Chainlink, and so they have some I guess really big competitor they're up against, but their market cap is so low and their team works very, very hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we were looking at the breakout to the upside, and as you say, that did happen. And one of the things that I've heard you say a few times before is, take your capital off the table, and then you're playing with the market's money. And that's a good idea, I think, because then the market can't hurt you even if it corrects, and then you can think about getting back in if you want to. But this is making quite a nice consolidation here. Again, it's got to do a bit more work before it's properly bullish, but it's still consolidating and holding the lows, which is pretty good considering how the broader market's holding up, or hasn't been, over the past few weeks. So what I would like to see happen is a break of this trend line. So if you notice, I draw the line from the resistance points here and here, and also we've got really good resistance here. So this was the first attempt to exit this trend, and it did okay and then failed. Now, this is why we call it a double bottom, if it indeed this is what it's going to be. If it breaks through here, it would have completed 2 lows, 1, then 2, and that is a buy signal. It's a technical buy signal, and that's where I get really interested. So if it can take this 0.3609 level out, even if it just pops a little bit over it, I get really excited before it breaks it. So if it starts to approach it, then I'm like, okay, is the momentum going to take this out? Depends what sort of investor or trader you are. One might try and buy it here because you say, well, look, there's good support here. I can't argue with that. I mean, technicals is about, buying something and then having your exit position based upon why you bought it. If you're a short-term trader, that might be great. It might just go up a little bit and you get out. If you're a long-term investor, you might be saying, well, yeah, this is great because, it's had such a big correction. Everyone's really bearish at the moment. I'm going to buy some here because, it looks pretty low. So it really depends on why you want to buy it. But if I try to think about this in the context of the big picture is that the market's correcting and then we'll move into a long-term upward trend. So I think we can let it go a little bit more because the upside will be well over $1 when it starts to happen. So me buying it at 0.37 isn't going to make a lot of difference between buying it at 0.27, which is where it is now. And so, yeah, so I still like it. I still think it's really an interesting chart. But it's short term. It needs to do a bit more work, but it's done some because it's carved out a little bit of a base.
Yeah, it's exciting where it's at, right? So it's nice when these good gems come back to a price that's really attractive. Now, if you followed me when I bought it before, it was around, I don't remember the exact price. I think it was right around 27 cents. And when it doubled, a little over double, I took all my initial off the table. And then when it kept going up, it's not like I wanted to take profits out of it because I believed in it. There were just other things that were really cheap because it pumped contrary to some other things that I did exit my position entirely, even though I like it. So this one I'll have to revisit because it is very attractive at the price. I like that. It looks like a nice double bottom. This is exactly where I like to enter. And then again, once it goes, like probably this time I'd be waiting for it to triple to take my initial out. And then I've got a free ride the rest of the way up. That way I've got a stress-free position. Cool. For me, that's a buy at that price.
Cool. Well, I would nibble at the level at the moment. I'd prefer, if I've got to give us an answer one way or the other, I would have to wait. But I'm more interested. I feel a little bit like I could be missing out more than some of the other ones. So, but I have to still stick with my discipline and wait for that 0.36 level to go before I get in. So that's how it is for me. It's so interesting to hear you talk about these markets, and it's great that people in the community tell us to look at them, because I find it quite fascinating, because when I speak to people outside of the financial space, you've got to remember that some people haven't even heard of Ethereum. I mean, a lot of people have heard of Bitcoin, but that's how ahead of the curve you are with a lot of this stuff. And even people who've been in the crypto space wouldn't have heard of a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today. So it really is fascinating, but I have to remind myself of this a few times, because you end up talking to people and saying, oh, have you heard of this? And they're like, no, I haven't. They've not heard of Ethereum. And you're like, well, okay, have you heard about Solana? Well, you wouldn't have heard about that. And then anyway, so it's just a reminder that you are well ahead of the curve. So I think the next one is Kono. Is that right? Konomi, right? So yeah, so it's Kono's the code.
Yep, Kono. Yep.
Now, again, not a lot of data on this particular chart, but whoa, what a chart! I mean, this has been having fun this year, isn't it?
That's interesting. It's there is quite a lot of action on it. If you go to like CoinGecko,
okay,
it's got a history that goes all the way back to about March 2021. And so I don't hate the chart at all where it's at right now. It's actually done this nice rounded bottom. When it launched, it was as much as almost $5. So right now, today, it's like super cheap. It's 1/20th of that. And yeah, this is a Polkadot ecosystem project, specifically decentralized money market protocol on Polkadot.
right. Okay, now this can't be right, can it? I mean,
Yeah,
that is right, is it? Wow.
that's what I'm looking at.
Whoa. Okay, that looks very different. So yeah,
Yeah.
I see because it's only just
Uh,
bouncing here, right?
yeah.
Okay,
For
okay.
some reason on the other chart, it's only picking up the last little bit, and the
Yeah,
last little
yeah,
bit it's done positive.
yeah, yeah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, yeah, so wow, look at that. Look at that double top and that downward trend.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like when this trends, it really trends. I mean, look, in terms of when it's red, and when it's green, it's green. But it's fine. It's trying to find a low down here. So I think this is a really interesting point, especially when it matches this low over here. So I can see why now people were buying it at this level. I thought it was a relatively new chart and it was just kicking off. But that makes sense because it's matching this low down here, these, that really important support. So yeah, on the basis of that, it's a buy because it's matched this low, and it looks like it could have quite a lot more to go. But again, January, you've got to be very careful because the market is a bit thinner. People do take extended holidays, and in the foreign exchange markets, in the stock markets, everywhere, you can get what we call really screwy price action for the first few weeks. So with that in mind, just be careful. But yeah, I like that. I think that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I like this price where it's at. And this is the kind of situation where I would take not a teeny position, I'd take decent position when I see something I like this, and this chart screams it's going to do well. I'm looking at the markets it's tradable on. It's tradable on gate.io. We do have a link below. If you use gate.io, you get 20% of your own trading commissions back by using our link. It's also tradable on KuCoin. And so it's also on Uniswap, but yeah, we all know how the trading fees are on Uniswap as well as the liquidity. They have a decent amount of liquidity there. They just, anytime I see something that's on Uniswap, but it's also on Gate.io or KuCoin, I prefer those exchanges for trading it. So Konomi, I like where the price is at very much.
Brilliant.
And it could go a little bit lower, but it's pretty much bottomed out, my guess, because it just got really close to that previous low. It hit at 23 cents. And yeah, it's a little bit above that. For me, that's fine. And it could break down below. Sometimes I get stuck with my model of trading. Sometimes I get stuck in something just being patient longer. And that's okay. For me, that's worked out tremendously. I'm patient and I just wait because I'm almost never wrong. Sometimes the timing doesn't happen like I hope it's going to, but I tend to pick things with stronger fundamentals. They have a good team behind it, and they come back into the limelight and they go crazy. Doesn't always happen when I want it to or as soon as I want it to, but usually the stuff that I grab onto goes pretty big. I mean, some examples are Axie Infinity, Cardano buying at the lows. I was a big fan, Cardano, when it was going down in the bear market. The hard thing was I started buying at 12 cents. And so that's always the risk of like this. It did bottom out at like 1.6 cents. So I see it going flat and I buy it. And then if it goes down some more, I buy it some more. And that's exactly how Cardano played out. So I bought some more at like 7 cents and then 5 cents and then at 4 cents and 3 cents. I missed the very bottom. And then it eventually turned around and it went to $3, right? 360, I think, so far as its high is retraced from there. But a lot of these things I like to find when they're cheap and then wait till they come into the limelight. And I think this one's a good one.
Yeah, great. And so I think this is the last one. Here we go. Just got to share my screen again, and we'll go back to. Oh, actually, no. I think that was the last one. That was the last one. So I think just one final one then from me was the mana chart, because
Let's do it.
I still got it ringing in my ears when you said, yeah, I think this is probably going to turn down, and I was like, well, no, I'm really bullish because it's going up. And look who was right. So that's why you've got a whole channel dedicated to cryptocurrency. But I'm still bullish on this longer term.
Yeah.
I'll just show you why, because the breakout was here. That's when everything went crazy, and it's not really come back that much into that breakout. So even though everything else is corrected, it's still well elevated. So if things if this was going to be a problem, I think it would have come back much quicker, and retraced all the way into like 1.5 or something like that. So, this is a long-term play, very much so. So although, yeah, your timing was bang on in terms of getting out here, and I was wrong, I still think this is interesting from a longer-term perspective. So that's one of the ones that just comes to mind for me, when I really think, well, could there be another blowout to the upside? I'm keeping an eye on something like this because it's something that should lead the way.
Yeah, the Decentraland was really the first metaverse to come out, and it's been interesting its journey, right? So that I still remember their token being at 2 cents, and so when I see it at $3, it's just like, oh my gosh, I happen to have a bunch of them because I participated in some of their world things, and so I had to buy some. I bought some shirts and other things in the during the crypto winter just to see how it was going. Happened to be holding on to a lot of their tokens when it went absolutely crazy. Basically, Mark Zuckerberg talked about metaverses and everything and metaverse went crazy. I can't tell you how the price for this will go from here. It's already up so high that I don't chase the boats that I missed. And I didn't happen to miss this one. I wasn't as big into it. I wish I had a lot more into it when it went absolutely crazy, because it did when Mark Zuckerberg talked about it. But for me, I'm just putting my seed capital into, I guess, boats that haven't been discovered yet, or gems that haven't been discovered, or they haven't hit the narrative, or they're so long forgotten that they're just so cheap that I just can't pass it up. So though I love what Decentraland has done in creating some, like, proving the narrative that metaverses work. I mean, what's amazing is with its land sale started, I think, in 2017. If it wasn't 2017, it was 2018. And you could buy a piece of land in Decentraland for $20 worth of mana tokens at the time. That land now is going for about $12,000 or $13,000. And so the appreciation there has been amazing. And it's kind of proven the whole metaverse concept that people are really interested in the direction it's going. We're really looking for that Ready Player One atmosphere or environment that where kind of this alternate world meshes with different games that we could play, as well as there's monetary value in some of the land and other things behind it. So Decentraland's proved that. I can't say where the token will go. I have sold all my mana and diversified into other riskier things. So
Yeah,
for me, it's a sell. Not that I don't love what the project's done. I'm just putting it into cheap things that are way, way down and way, way boring.
I'm slightly influenced by a very good friend of mine who looks at property cycles, and he seems to think that we're going to be, for the next few years, in a very bullish property cycle. And so we were discussing what that might look like, and then he mentioned mana and said, well, maybe what we'll see is a spillover from real estate into the metaverse. And this was before Facebook had made their change. And so I thought it was such an insightful comment that it still feels so massively early, if that is the context of what we're going to see, like big inflation, big gains in property prices, which to me sounds crazy. I mean, how can property prices keep going up at this rate? But I guess they can. So, and if that does happen, where will it spill over into? But also take your point, it's not a new story. So, and it's one of those hot markets that you've got to be very careful of. But
I think you're right and he's right, that the value in the land will go up, but I decouple the token from the land, because I don't know what the token will do. You don't necessarily even need the token, because you can buy the land on OpenSea with ETH. And so what do you need the token is my question. And the answer to that is no, not really. And so that's why I'm a little bit skittish on the tokens value. But like I think land, like Network is having their public land sale coming up soon. You can buy Ember Swords land if you go to, I think, Token Trove. I don't remember if it's .io or .com. You can buy Ember Sword land, and that has tremendous value. So check that out if you haven't already. For a basic piece of land, you end up paying about $1,000 worth of ETH on the Polygon network. And, you know, it could go. My guess is I picked up about 14 to 15 of those. And my hope is they go to, you know, 10 or 20 or 30,000 a piece. And then I'll be taking profits out of it. I'll always probably keep a couple because I'm probably going to play that game. It looks like the type of game I've been waiting for years. So, for those in the audience, thank you for joining us. If you're ready to level up your crypto game, join the Rainmaker community. Rainmakers, what are we? We're like the Navy SEALs of crypto. We don't get shaken out early. We're tenacious. We don't get shaken out easily either. We're tenacious and highly informed. And if that feels like what you're looking for, join us. You can join us by subscribing to the channel, hitting that all notifications button. So whether you're here for life-changing money, I know a few of you for that life-changing money, or for that really nice car that's so expensive it goes up in value, not down, strap in because these next few months, early 2022 is going to be hot. So join us by subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, you might consider it, as the principles that I share with you are proven. I started just like many of you did 4 years ago. Now, I did have 20 years investing experience in real estate and some failures along the way with that. And some good lessons learned. I started in crypto just 4 years ago, and the system that I developed took me about 2 years to really figure it out. In the last 3 years, gone from thousands of dollars in crypto in my portfolio to millions. And I hope that many of you learn from some of the things that I learned, and you're farther ahead in the next 4 years than what I did in the last 4 years. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time. Thank you, Paul, for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Came to the space chasing all of the games, jet pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you go, it was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. Buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, but leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling the parabolic they dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but when knowledge the game show. Seeking out this road, soon will come a bear market. We're learning and growing, and when it's slow, we'll be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. And makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time will be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, but time to slow down. Dressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.